Today, we're going to talk about Hashimoto's, for example, or thyroid conditions, and how that relates to a deeper issue beyond just the physical symptom. So, I've seen multiple women over the years who've struggled with thyroid conditions, whether it's a thyroid that's hypofunctioning or hyperfunctioning, or they have an autoimmune condition such as Hashimoto's disease, where the immune system is attacking the healthy tissue of the thyroid gland. And we try to figure out why this is the case. You get your labs drawn and tested by the endocrinologist. You might be put on certain medications or even go a natural route and get some natural thyroid support. But the issue still remains, why is the body doing this? And something that I typically find in my women clients who are struggling with thyroid issues is, again, that mind-body connection, or the deeper story behind the physical symptom. So when you think about the thyroid gland, right, it's located in the throat. And whether you're familiar with different energy centers in the body, this one's not that hard to figure out, right? So a gland that's in the throat, what's happening with the throat is an area where you are projecting your voice and communicating and speaking up for yourself. Now, what I see a lot of the times in people who have Hashimoto's or low thyroid function is that they tend to struggle with finding their voice, speaking up for themselves, speaking for how they truly feel, and they seem to struggle in this area. So I'll give you a story. One woman I worked with, she had a pretty traumatic experience when she was a young girl. And when we went back through her history to revisit different key events in her life, this came up. And she recently came to me because she was just diagnosed with Hashimoto's and her antibodies were up, and the prescribing doctor, gave her some medications, but she didn't really want to go that route. So she wanted to seek another way to see what naturopathic medicine could offer. So, we tabled that for a second because we want to understand, again, the whole person, not just the illness or the condition, right? And this is a quote attributed to Hippocrates. Hippocrates says it's more important to understand what kind of person has the disease than what kind of disease a person has. That means you don't want to just understand the disease process or the pathology. You want to understand the person behind it. And I often tell people, if I had 10 people with the same diagnosis or the same thyroid condition, for example, each one of those people would need 10 completely different and unique approaches in order for them to truly heal. Whereas typically in conventional medicine, all of those 10 people would be treated the same or get the same treatment, the same medication, or the same surgery, for example, or procedure. However, when you truly understand and treat the person, you'll realize that each person is a unique individual and there's no one else like you. And so you need a certain unique approach to your care as well. So let's come back to my patient who had the thyroid diagnosis, but had a history of some certain traumatic childhood events. When we went back there, we noticed that a certain theme in her life was not being able to speak up for herself. She felt like her parents at the time, or other people who were more overpowering than her throughout her school years, were in a way suppressing her voice, or she didn't feel comfortable to be able to speak up for herself against these overpowering figures in her life. So this became a common thread throughout her life. She would always suppress or push down how she really felt, what she really thought, in order to pretty much please her parents and the people around her at school. Now, as you can imagine, the more and more a person does this, right? They suppress their true authenticity or who they really are or how they really feel. They don't truly get to grow into a strong standing individual. And at the same time, the throat energy center, where the thyroid is seated, it wants to communicate. It wants to have authentic speech and connection and communication. So if there's a blockage here, or if there's a struggle here, that's going to manifest physically somewhere in that area, right? So for many women, this shows up as a thyroid condition. And as I was explaining this to this patient, this client, it's like she instantly aligned with this and recognized that in herself. But for many women, this is a theme in their life, right? Learning how to find your authentic voice and communicate that into the world and to people in your life. So once that was addressed with this particular client, She, was able to process this. Of course, we did some other things to make sure her foundations of health were in place. And then she goes back and she got her labs drawn again just shortly after, and she said, Dr. Jinmi, I got my labs back and all my antibodies are completely clear. I've got nothing. And this isn't always a common story, right? Typically, these patients are put on levothyroxine or medication for a very long time. And many times, even naturopathically, the approach is to change the diet and the lifestyle, which is absolutely important, not discounting that at all. And it's something I do in addition to addressing the mind body piece. But what we find is that typically you can do that for many, many years. And for some people, they will feel and find some benefit. But there's still many others where we feel like we're just in maintenance mode and just kind of stringing you along almost. And there's not real healing happening. So that means we didn't really get to the crux of the issue with you as an individual. For some people, it really is the diet and the lifestyle and these certain inflammatory triggers that are messing with the thyroid. But oftentimes it's something deeper or a combination of the two. So we need to address this holistically. Now, here's another example of another client. She recently just got out of a difficult relationship and she felt like her voice again was strained or stressed or suppressed, and she couldn't really speak up for how she really felt. She felt like her partner was out of her league. So she didn't feel like she could really speak up when he was mistreating her or doing things that she wasn't comfortable with. She thought that this is how relationships are, and I just need to kind of swallow this and get used to it and deal with it, especially if I want to be in this relationship. So she went on like that for many, many months and into a few years. And after she finally cut off the relationship, she was newly single, and that's when she found me. And she shared this with me, and I mentioned to her, this is not really coincidence what you're sharing and the fact that your body has manifested concern with the thyroid gland physically, right? Because you've had this conflict within your body, within the mind, body, spirit picture. And physically, the body was also manifesting that, right? It gives us a clue into what's going on deeper. So this was also a big aha moment for her. And now that the relationship was done, which was a positive step in this regard, she was able to just kind of go in and reflect and really do some healing with finding her voice, with communicating her needs and communicating how she really felt, instead of feeling like she needs to just push all that aside for the sake of keeping a relationship or to not upset her partner or the other person. And this is a very important step in anyone's self-growth process, right? So this particular lovely woman will go on to find a new partner, and this new growth process in finding your voice and communicating your needs and having an equal partnership in that regard is very important, as you can imagine. So if you're someone who's struggling with Hashimoto's or hypothyroid conditions or any thyroid condition, consider what the body might be cluing you into, something deeper. Consider if you have issues with communication or speaking up for yourself or advocating for yourself or just saying how you truly feel and think, and that flow of energy and communication is free and unrestricted, right? There's a difference between just saying whatever we want and being completely uninhibited and as if that's healing. I mean, that's not necessarily a negative thing, perhaps, but there's a way to say what you really think and feel, and also a way to say it in a way that feels like you're honoring yourself without hurting another person, if that makes sense. Maybe that's another layer for another video. But the way we communicate and the ease of which we communicate and advocate for ourselves and the truth that we feel inside our hearts, this is important. And it's a big growing point for many women. And if you tend to be one of those women who struggle with this and have coincidentally also struggled with thyroid issues, this might be a reflection point for you. If this sounds like you or someone you know, please share in the comments if this resonated with you and how. I'd love to see it. And if you'd like more practical tips on how to support your immune system holistically, go and check out my free guide linked below. If this content resonates with you, that holistic connection, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.